I scanned another box of cereal. Beep. Into the bag. Next item. The rhythm had become second nature after 3 years behind Register 7, the kind of muscle memory that lets your mind wander while your hands work automatically, paper or plastic. I asked Mrs. Henderson, the retired teacher who came in every Tuesday for her weekly groceries. Always the same items: cat food, frozen dinners, and a single bottle of wine. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra. Special for you, Plastic Dear. How's your mother doing? Better, thanks for asking. The lie came easily. Mom wasn't better. The cancer was winning, and these grocery store paychecks barely covered her medications, let alone the mounting medical bills. But Mrs. Henderson didn't need to carry that burden. My name tag, read Elena Vasquez, in bold black letters, though most customers never bothered to read it. To them, I was just another face in a red vest, part of the background noise of their daily routine. They had no idea that these same hands bagging their groceries had once disarmed explosive devices in Kandahar. That the woman asking if they found everything okay had spent 6 years as an EOD specialist, defusing bombs that could level city blocks. That was a lifetime ago. Before the discharge, before the nightmares, before I traded my combat uniform for a grocery store vest and tried to disappear into the mundane safety of suburban anonymity. The afternoon crawled by in its usual parade of shopping carts and credit card transactions. Soccer moms grabbing snacks between practices. Office workers picking up lunch. Elderly couples moving slowly through aisles they'd navigated for decades. Normal people living normal lives, blissfully unaware that their world could shatter in an instant. I was thinking about Mom's doctor appointment tomorrow when the first gunman walked through the automatic doors. He moved wrong. Too deliberate, too focused. His eyes swept the store in a pattern I recognized: tactical assessment, looking for exits, cameras, threats. The bulge under his jacket wasn't a wallet. I'd seen enough concealed weapons to spot one from 50 yards. My blood went cold as 2 more men entered behind him. Same purposeful stride, same predatory awareness. They split up naturally, one toward the pharmacy, one to the customer service desk, the third heading straight for my lane. This wasn't a robbery. Robberies were sloppy, desperate things. This was an operation. Ladies and gentlemen, the lead man's voice carried across the store with practiced authority. Everyone remain calm, and this will be over quickly. We're here for someone specific. Cooperate, and no one gets hurt. The store erupted into chaos. Screams echoed off the linoleum floors as shoppers dove behind displays or ran for exits that were already being blocked. Children cried. Someone's phone clattered across the floor. I stood frozen behind my register, mind racing through possibilities. Hostage situation, professional team, specific target. This wasn't random violence. They were hunting someone. The lead gunman approached. My station, weapon now visible in his grip. Mid-30s, olive complexion, expensive clothes that didn't match his dead eyes. Military bearing, but something else underneath. Mercenary maybe, or worse. Elena Vasquez, he said, consulting a photograph in his other hand. Former explosive ordnance disposal specialist, 515th EOD Company. Discharged after the Kabul incident. My stomach dropped. How did they know? I'd been so careful, so invisible. 3 years of clocking in and out, paying taxes, being nobody special. How had they found me? I think you have me confused with someone else, I managed. Though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears, he smiled without warmth. The woman who defused 17 IEDs in her final tour. Who saved half a battalion when that compound was rigged to blow. Don't insult my intelligence. More screams from the pharmacy section. Gunshots not fatal from the sound, but enough to establish dominance. These weren't amateurs playing dress-up. They moved like special forces, communicated with subtle hand signals, controlled the space with military precision. "What do you want?" I asked. "Simple. You're going to disarm something for us. Consider it a return to your old profession." He gestured toward the customer service counter where his partner was forcing the manager to open the safe. "Your old friend Marcus. Reeves is making things complicated for our employer. He's been hiding evidence of some unfortunate business dealings in various locations around the city, including here. Marcus." My pulse quickened. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years, not since the military investigation that ended both our careers. But if he was in trouble, real trouble, it explained how they'd tracked me down. "I don't know where Marcus is," I said truthfully. "We do. He's currently zip-tied in the back office, along with your manager. But he's proven ... uncooperative. Claims he needs you to retrieve what we're after. Something about your special touch. With delicate mechanisms." The third gunman approached from the pharmacy, dragging a terrified teenage cashier. 27 hostages secured, he reported in accented English. Local police response estimated at 12 minutes. 12 minutes. In 12 minutes, this place would be swarming with SWAT teams and negotiators and media vans. These professionals knew exactly what they were doing. "Here's the situation," the leader continued, his weapon casually pointed in my direction. "Your friend rigged a little insurance policy in case anyone came looking for his evidence. Pressure-sensitive device. Very sophisticated. One wrong move, and half this building disappears." My blood ran cold. Marcus always was too clever for his own good. "He says you're the only one who can disarm it safely. So you're going to walk back there with me, do your magic, and everyone goes home happy. Refuse, and we start shooting hostages until you change your mind." I looked around at the terrified faces of people I'd served for 3 years. Mrs. Henderson, crouched behind the magazine rack, clutching her purse like a shield. Tommy from the deli department, barely 18, pressed against a display of soup cans with tears streaming down his face. Maria from the bakery, hiding behind the flour. Stan probably thinking about her 2 kids at home. These people had nothing to do with my past. They shouldn't pay for my secrets. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll do it. Smart girl." He gestured toward the back offices. "After you." The walk to the rear of the store felt like crossing a battlefield. My combat instincts were awakening after years of dormancy, cataloging details, the positions of the gunmen, potential cover, exit routes, improvised weapons. The part of me that had survived 6 years of war zones was stirring to life. In the office, Marcus sat zip-tied to a chair, his face already showing signs of interrogation. Blood trickled from his nose, and one eye was swelling shut. When he saw me, his expression mixed relief with shame. "Elena, God, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to get dragged into this. Where is it?" I asked, all business. He nodded toward a filing cabinet in the corner, behind the tax records. "I built it into the wall cavity. Timer mechanism with pressure plates. Any attempt to remove it without the proper sequence. Boom," I finished. "How long?" "Originally set for 24 hours when I heard they were closing in, but that was this morning. Maybe 8 hours left." The lead gunman checked his watch. Police response. "In 9 minutes, you better work fast." I knelt beside the filing cabinet, running my hands along the edges until I found the hidden panel. Marcus always did good work. The concealment was nearly perfect, but I could feel the slight vibration of active electronics behind the drywall. "I need my tools," I said. "You don't have tools. You have whatever's in this office." I looked around. Desk supplies, a letter opener, some wire from the computer cables. Not exactly EAD kit, but I'd worked with less in Afghanistan. Carefully, I removed the false panel. Behind it sat a device that made my heart skip. Professional work, military-grade components. Motion sensors, pressure plates, and enough C4 to turn Morrison's market into a crater. Jesus, Marcus, what did you get yourself into? Blackwater contract. Went sideways, he muttered. Evidence of war crimes. I kept copies as insurance. Guess it wasn't enough. The timer showed 7 hours 43 minutes and 22 seconds and counting down. My hands moved automatically, testing connections, tracing wires, identifying the firing sequence. It was like riding a bicycle, terrifying, deadly bicycle that could kill everyone I'd worked alongside for 3 years. Police outside, the third. Gunman reported from his position at the window. SWAT van arriving. How much longer? The leader demanded. I studied the device, noting the sophisticated anti-tamper mechanisms. This wasn't just a bomb, it was a puzzle designed by someone who understood EOD procedures. Every standard approach had been anticipated and countered. This is going to take time, I said. Your friend built this to keep people like me out. You have 3 minutes before we start shooting hostages. My hands steadied as the familiar calm of crisis settled over me. This was what I'd trained for, what I'd been good at. In Afghanistan, when everyone else panicked, I got quieter, more focused, more precise. I traced the primary circuit, noting the redundancies and fail-safes. Classic Marcus, overthinking everything. But that gave me an advantage. I knew how his mind worked. 2 minutes, the gunman said. The first wire, red, leading to the pressure sensor. But red was too obvious. Marcus would have ... there. Yellow wire, nearly hidden behind the battery pack. That was the real trigger. 1 minute. I found the sequence not random, but based on coordinates, the location where we'd first met in Kandahar. Our old fob designation. I entered the numbers into the digital display. Wrong. The timer continued counting. Down. Voices outside. Megaphones. The police were setting up their perimeter. Soon this would be a standoff, and these professionals would start making demands. Wait. I'd entered the wrong coordinates. Not where we met, but where we'd save those Marines when the compound was rigged to blow. The day that defined both our careers and destroyed them. New numbers into the keypad. 6 hours 42 minutes and 1 second. 6 hours 42 minutes and 0 seconds. The timer stopped. The device powered down with a soft electronic whine. Done, I said, sitting back on my heels. The leader smiled grimly. Excellent. Now the evidence. Marcus shook his head. That wasn't the deal. I disabled the bomb, you let everyone go. I made no such deal. He raised his weapon. The drives now. They're not here, Marcus said. You think I'd keep everything in one place? The gunman's expression darkened. Outside, a police bullhorn crackled to life. This is the Atlanta Police Department. The building is surrounded. Release the hostages and come out with your hands visible. Where are they? The leader demanded. Marcus met my eyes and I saw the apology there. Safe deposit box, First National. Elena has the key. All eyes turned to me. I don't have any key. Check your locker, Marcus said quietly. Emergency contact stuff I left with you years ago. My employee locker. I'd never cleaned it out completely, just kept adding layers of work clothes and personal items over the months and years. Buried somewhere in that mess could be anything. Move, the gunman ordered. The trip to the employee break room felt surreal. Police spotlights swept the windows. Helicopters circled overhead. And I walked through it all like I was heading to another shift. Another day of scanning barcodes and asking about paper or plastic. My locker was third from the left. Combination lock I'd had since high school. Inside, spare uniforms, emergency snacks, tampons, a photo of Mom from before the diagnosis. And wedged behind everything else, a small envelope I'd forgotten about. Inside the envelope, a safe deposit box key and a note in Marcus's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm in trouble. Box 447. Use it wisely. The leader snatched the key. Perfect. My employer will be pleased. Now let everyone go, I said. He laughed. I'm afraid that's not possible. You've both seen our faces. You know our methods. Can't have loose ends walking around. The cold realization hit me. They'd never intended to leave witnesses. The hostages were just leverage to get what they wanted. Once they had it. Besides, he continued, we have another use for you. My employer is very interested in recruiting someone with your skills. Former military OD specialists don't grow on trees. I'm not interested. You will be. We have ways of making people interested. The radio on his belt crackled. Boss, SWAT is setting up. Snipers on the adjacent buildings. We need to move. He keyed the mic. 5 minutes. Then we execute the exit strategy. Exit strategy. That probably meant hostages weren't walking out of here alive. I thought about Mrs. Henderson, about Tommy and Maria, and all the other innocent people caught up. In my past, they came here to buy groceries, not to die because of my secrets. What's the plan? I asked. Utility tunnels. Storm drains connect to the subway system 3 blocks away. We disappear underground while police are still surrounding an empty building. What about the hostages? His smile was answer enough. Something inside me, the part that had stayed buried for 3 years, finally snapped awake. These weren't customers or colleagues anymore. They were civilians under threat, and I'd taken an oath once to protect civilians. I'd been Elena the grocery clerk for 3 years. Time to remember Elena the soldier. I need to use the bathroom, I said. He gestured impatiently. Make it quick. The employee restroom was small, just a toilet and sink, but it connected to a storage closet that backed up to the loading dock. More importantly, it had a maintenance panel that accessed the building's electrical system. I pulled out my phone, somehow they'd forgotten to take it, and sent a text to a number I hadn't used in years. Emergency code I'd learned in the Army. One that would route directly to federal law enforcement. Hostage situation, Morrison's Market. 27 civilians, 3 armed professionals. Military. Training. Explosive device neutralized. Elena Vasquez ED 515th, reporting. Then I opened the electrical panel and got to work. The lights went out exactly 90 seconds later, plunging the store into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, but the sudden change disrupted the gunmen's careful positions and sight lines. Heard shouting, confused orders, the sound of panicked hostages scrambling for better cover. In the chaos, I slipped out of the restroom and moved through the darkened store like a ghost. 3 years of working here, memorizing every aisle, every display, every blind corner. This was my terrain now. The first gunman was by the pharmacy, trying to re-establish visual contact with his team. I came up behind him using skills I'd hoped never to need again. Combat knife taken from the deli department. Quick, quiet, efficient. 1 down. The second was shouting into his radio by customer service. I used the shopping cart return lanes as cover, moving through shadows that had once been mundane parts of my workplace. The wire from my earlier work on the electrical panel made an effective garrote. 2 down. The leader was smarter. Had taken a hostage Tommy from the deli and positioned himself with a clear view of the main floor. But he'd made one mistake. He assumed I'd try to get out. Instead, I went up. The maintenance ladder to the storage mezzanine gave me a perfect angle. 20 feet above him, looking down at the man who'd threatened my coworkers. I'd learned patience. In Afghanistan, learned to wait for the perfect shot, the perfect moment when everything aligned and there was no room for error. He relaxed for just an instant, thinking he'd secured the area. That's when I dropped from the mezzanine. Years of EO'd work had given me steady hands and precise timing. The impact took him down hard, his weapon skittering across the floor. Tommy scrambled away toward the other hostages. It's over, I told. The unconscious form beneath me. Police flooded the building 3 minutes later, following the GPS coordinates from my text. FBI bomb technicians secured the device. Paramedics treated the traumatized hostages, and I sat in the break room, still wearing my Morrison's Market vest, trying to explain to federal agents how a grocery store clerk had single-handedly neutralized a professional kidnapping team. Your military record says you were discharged after a psychological evaluation, Agent Martinez said, consulting her tablet. Post-traumatic stress, unsuitable for continued service. The evaluation was correct. I said, I wasn't suitable for continued service. Too many close calls, too many bombs, I needed out. But you kept your skills. I looked through the break room window at the store floor, where crime scene technicians were documenting everything. Tomorrow there would be news vans and reporters. And questions I didn't want to answer. You never really lose them, I said. You just hope you never need them again. Agent Martinez closed her tablet. We'll need a full debriefing, but preliminary assessment suggests this was a private military contractor working for persons unknown. Your friend Marcus was involved in some complicated international business. Is he going to be okay? He'll recover. And he's agreed to cooperate fully with our investigation. Says he owes you his life. I thought about Mrs. Henderson already calling me a hero to anyone who would listen. About Tommy, who kept thanking me with tears in his eyes. About Maria, who'd hugged me and whispered prayers in Spanish. They saw a hero. I saw someone who'd tried to disappear, but couldn't escape what she really was. What happens now? I asked. Agent Martinez smiled. That depends. We could always use someone with your skills. Counterterrorism Division is always looking for EOD specialists who can think outside the box. I looked around the break room where I'd eaten lunch for 3 years, at the schedule where my shifts were marked in blue ink, at the motivational poster about customer service that had always made me roll my eyes. 3 years of trying to be normal. 3 years of pretending I was just another face in the crowd. But normal people don't disarm bombs in office buildings. Normal people don't take down professional killers with deli knives and electrical wire. Maybe it was time to stop pretending. Do I get better health benefits than Morrison's Market? I asked. Agent Martinez laughed. Much better. And your mother's medical bills would be covered under federal employee family health care. I stood up, untying my red Morrison's Market vest for the last time. When do I start? Epilogue. 6 months later, I stood in a similar fluorescent lit space, this time a federal building in Atlanta, teaching bomb disposal techniques to a room full of agents and military personnel. The nameplate on my desk read Elena Vasquez, Senior EOD Specialist, FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Through the window, I could see Morrison's Market across the street. They'd rebuilt the customer service area and installed new security systems. A small plaque by the entrance honored the heroic actions of Elena Vasquez during the incident. Mrs. Henderson still shopped there every Tuesday. Tommy had gotten promoted to assistant manager. Maria had started taking self-defense classes, and sometimes, when my work allowed, I'd stop by to pick up groceries. Just another customer now, no longer hiding behind a checkout counter. The quiet grocery clerk had been a role I'd played, not who I really was. It took armed terrorists and a bomb in the wall to remind me, you can't run from your true nature. Forever, some people are meant to scan barcodes and ask about paper or plastic. Others are meant to stand between civilians and the darkness that threatens them. I'd finally figured out which one I was.